devotion.
Is it just a question of mindset or the depth of realization?
No, I think mindset. I think two different personality types and two different spiritual paths. Sri Ramakrishna is very clear. He said the vijnanis have two types. One maintains the ripe ego, two types of ripe ego. One is the ego of knowledge, and one the ego of devotion. I don't think he says one is higher, one is lower, one is better, or anything like that. I think it depends on the spiritual path.
I'm not going there.
Yeah.
Only for those who have followed the path of jnana and achieved Jivanmukta, not all of them will be vijnanis. That is.
I take it the other way. If we assume that they've reached the roof somehow, and they've come back down again, then automatically they're a vijnani. Now the philosophers may come up with some subtle distinction between the Jivanmukta and the vijnani, but Sri Ramakrishna doesn't talk about any big distinction. He calls them both vijnanis. Those who
that experience ends with sarvam kalvidam.
Yeah. Now Shankaracharya, we assume, was not only a God-realized soul, but a Nitya Siddha, some special Adhikarika Purusha, that he had some special mission to fulfill in life. And we assume that at some point he had some full realization, even though born perfect, still they have some full realization. And what did he do afterwards? This world was a dream for him. He created the whole... wrote his bhashyas. He did the whole monastics in Dashanami Sampradaya. He did so much after that.
Can you say the same thing about Totapuri?
Totapuri, I would say, lived in the world like the dry leaf. So the vijnani can be of many different types.
Yeah.
According to
the world as unreal.
More is unreal. Yeah, definitely. So I think they're all different types, and one problem, this tendency of the mind to pigeonhole everything, to have different categories. There can be a whole variety of different types of the ego. We're talking about two because it's predominantly for Sri Ramakrishna. He had the ego of devotion, he had the ego of knowledge, he had the ego of everything. His ripe ego, it wasn't restricted to anything. Swamiji also. Did Swamiji have the ego of a devotee or the ego of a jnani? Equally both. So, and for Swamiji, a time came when he said, yes, everything is like a dream. When he withdrew, he didn't care for the work much at the end.
Yeah, because for them it is.
His play was done. His play was done. Yeah, we're getting close to the end. So, so many varieties and different layers and facets to all of these things that we try to pigeonhole, and we try to make them simply, either the eye of knowledge or the eye of devotion, either Jnani or Jivanmukta. It's very, very hard, and all these levels of realization. And but what Thakur is talking about now is those really who follow the strict path of Jnana Yoga, according to the Advaitins. This is my feeling. Because the others, we can be a Jnani following the path of Vishishta Advaita Vedanta. Why not? They're also the actual followers of Madhva. They engage in this vichara more than anybody. They love argumentation and reasoning and everything. So that's also a type of Jnana Yoga, but they won't come to the same conclusion. They won't call this world unreal like a dream. So this unreality of the world, this really is this Advaita Vedanta, a strict type of Advaita Vedanta. Now, we may say Thakur is also an Advaitin. Yes, from one point of view, because he felt that this individual self is really just a reflection of that infinite Brahma, that sun of knowledge. From that point of view. See, Advaita has two aspects to it. And one of them is this, what is the relationship between the individual self and the Supreme Self? For the Advaitin, there's oneness. They're identical. They're not two separate things at all. Only some false appearance makes us feel some separation, but absolute oneness. The other is this Jagat Mithya. This world is unreal, like a dream. This is highly controversial. There are all sorts of schools where the first is accepted, but not the second. And we can almost say that Sri Ramakrishna falls within that, although I'm always arguing against him belonging to any schools. But his preference was to see this world as a manifestation of the divine. Preference. Now, if some people saw it dreamlike, yes, it can be dreamlike also, but to dismiss it as something false is something that wasn't in his DNA, and perhaps is not appropriate for somebody who has a mission to fulfill in life.
But Shankaracharya also, by using the word mithya, it doesn't mean unreal. It is something that is inexplicable.
This is a highly controversial point. What did Shankaracharya mean by mithya? We'll have some people who will take it very literally. Yeah, you'll hear a little bit about this on Sunday. Yeah, it's not pratibhati. It's not completely unreal. The mithya means relative. Well, if we say vyavaharika, this was really his view of the world is more this vyavaharika idea that it has a relative existence. And it's not something like seeing a castle in the sky that's completely unreal. That there are three different categories that he uses. But to have this feeling that this world is dreamlike, a passing show, is helpful for the jnani, follower of the path of knowledge, so that there won't be any attachment to the world. This is the benefit of it. If they really want to withdraw from the world and have this intense vairagya and the desire for liberation and everything, it's very helpful to see this dreamlike quality of the world. We can all do that. When Thakur says this world is anitya, it's a passing show. It's lila. It's a show. The show is also not real. The play is also not real. They're actors. They're playing their role in everything. So there's a little element to this unreality and this idea of lila also. But it's a show that's being performed by the Divine Mother and her cast. It's little different, just different emphasis, we can say. Anyhow, let's get back to this a little bit. Oh, the divine incarnation. So the jnani doesn't accept the divine incarnation. Now we know that Thakur is really speaking from a very strict, narrow point of view, because many people, was Swamiji not a jnani? And did he not accept Sri Ramakrishna as an avatar? Not just avatar, but avatar of Rishta. Huh? So he's talking about those who really can make no distinction. The divine presence is equally present within each and every individual. This was Swamiji's argument in Narendra when he was young. He can say, how do you call one, if God dwells equally within all, then how do you point one person, say God manifests in that person? God manifests in everybody. Huh? So Sri Ramakrishna would say, yes, you're right, but a little difference in Shakti, the Shakti Vishesh. Now the Jnani can accept that. We have plenty of Jnanis in our order who accept Sri Ramakrishna. We have one or two who don't really accept this idea of these avatars. This is a very rare thing. But even those, the monks of our order and other orders also, I mean, look at Bhagavad Gita. It's full of Jnana Yoga and the idea of the avatar side by side. Even Shankaracharya, he'll have a hard time not accepting this avatar. He accepts the Gita. He comments on it. It's one of the Prasthanatraya, one of the three supporting limbs, pillars of Vedanta. So he has to accept that also. So Thakur is talking about really those who will say that this Brahman is dwelling equally within all beings, and actually this world is just a dreamlike and just a show, Where's the room for the avatar?
Yeah, but even if they, whether they accept whether there is place for an incarnation or not, it doesn't make any difference to the philosophy. That is why they don't emphasize that.
They'll, if we go by this Puranic idea of the avatar, then they'll have trouble accepting it. If we go by the idea which Thakur talks about, then anybody can accept it. Jnani can also accept it. We're all waves on the ocean. One is a huge wave. Yeah, we can all accept that. So Thakur is talking from a slightly different point of view.
That is why Thakur also said Jai Ram, Jai Krishna, but
not in your Vedantic sense. When Thakur told the Swamiji that he was Rama, he was Krishna, is now here as Ramakrishna, but not in your Vedantic sense. That means not in the sense that I can say it also. I can say that he who is the divine Lord, Ishvara, is also took birth as me, present within me, as the real self within me. I can say that. I can't say that I'm an avatar. He's saying in a different sense that the avatar is born perfect, has no karma, has a tremendous spiritual power. There's so many things that we can say that an ordinary person doesn't have. But some things are absolute, some are different of degree. The degree of spiritual power, and the degree to change the course of the world. These things are present there in a special sense. So when Thakur says the Jnani doesn't accept the divine incarnation, he's talking about these very old traditional types, or the modern day Brahmagyanis. Who are they? The Brahma Samaj. Yeah, that also we can understand a little bit from that point of view, because they didn't accept this idea of the avatar. Yeah. So for them, they felt not accepting the avatar. They were strictly following the views of the Upanishads, because we don't find this avatar concept or teaching in the Upanishads. The Swamiji says we may find a little hint. We might find the seed for it, but we find it mostly in Gita.
And in Gita, did Krishna say that I am the God? I'm not. He didn't say he was avatar. He said he's God.
No, he identified himself with God.
God, yeah.
Yeah, but having taken human form. No, he talks many times about the avatar coming. That many times. This idea of the avatar is very clear in the Gita. He's not simply saying I'm God the same way that I can say I'm God. He's not simply saying Om Brahmasmi. He's saying that from time to time, when Dharma is in the descent, that the Lord comes in human form. The avatar. Yeah. So the followers of this path do not accept the divine incarnation. Now, what Ramakrishna is saying really is not that divine incarnation depends upon anybody believing in it or not. Because he'll say it is a very difficult path. The lovers of God should not hear much of such. He says that is why God incarnates himself as man. So Sri Ramakrishna accepts that. He can appreciate the view of the Jnani, but for him, the Jnani is looking at everything just through one prism, just through one way of looking at things that doesn't allow him to look at it from a different direction. That's all. It's a very peculiar and particular type of staircase that he's climbing up to get to the roof, but he'll get to the roof through it. And it's not necessary for him to accept this idea of the incarnation. This is what Thakur is saying. So the incarnation doesn't come, especially for their sake. It'll be more for the sake of others. Now, we can say Sri Krishna was an avatar. He gave the highest teachings of this Atmajnana, the nature of the self, that will be very beneficial for the Jnanis. But they'll like the teachings. They don't need the teacher. They don't need to have this idea of the avatar. Anyhow, the lovers of God should not hear much of such reasoning. Sri Ramakrishna was very particular that these things weren't spoken about too much in front of Rakal, because Thakur felt, especially with Swamiji, that Swamiji's personality was so huge that Rakal could be influenced too much by if Swamiji talked too much of this the impersonal idea. So he was a very protective of Rakal. That is why God incarnates himself as man and teaches people the path of devotion. He exhorts people to cultivate self-surrender to God. See, suppose this idea of the avatar has no factual basis. Suppose we simply see these great souls and we attribute some special status to them, and we love them and meditate on them and worship them and surrender to them. Do we not get the same benefit? So he exhorts people to cultivate self-surrender to God. If we can develop this self-surrender and this love, see, all of these things are dependent upon the ego. Ego is also not real. It doesn't matter, because that's the vehicle that'll take us there, and then we push it back. Like the boat that takes us to the other side, then we push it back. There's a verse, Uttirnehi saritpare navaya kim paryojanam, that once we've crossed to the other side, what need do we have for the boat? We leave it behind us. We push it back. So there's a Buddhist idea that they say dharma is for crossing, not for carrying. It gets us across, then we leave it behind. We don't need it anymore. So this very curious thing, how this ego of devotion will carry us across to the other side, and then when we get to the other side, we'll see through it. We'll see that there was no permanence to it, but we'll be happy that we had it, that it helped us to get there. So many things like that. Through self-effort, we reach that point where we see that there was no individuality to begin with. These are called a paradox. Paradox is not a contradiction. Contradiction is something that can't take place. Paradox is something that seems to be contradictory, but we reach a point where it resolves itself. Religion is spiritualized is full of paradoxes. Yeah.
What does it mean to leave the drama behind?
We don't have to reason anymore. What Thakur says, don't reason anymore, and go be. In context of Gita, it can mean give up all these rites and rituals. Don't worry too much about following rules and everything. Then you're beyond all of that. And the Buddhist idea is that at that point, even all of the spiritual practices and the teachings and everything that we can leave behind. Say for Sri Ramakrishna, we can leave behind this idea that everything that's unreal that we dismiss, that this is false and everything, we can leave that behind. We don't have to reason anymore. He says this is losing the paper with the shopping list. Then we find it and we buy all the items. Then we don't need the list anymore. We throw it away. We've achieved it already.
So Maharaj is referring to reasoning, leaving reasoning behind, or the rituals also?
Here he means reasoning. But we can say rituals also, that even before realization, once we reach that anurag state, then we give up this vaidhi bhakti state. We don't have to do the rituals. But he says they fall off on their own. We don't give them up. They fall off on their own when we reach that state, which is a very high state. So this is why God incarnates himself as man and teaches people the path of devotion. He exhorts people to cultivate self-surrender to God. Following the path of devotion, one realizes everything through his grace, both knowledge and supreme wisdom. No talk about 21 days here. So we can have, through the path of devotion, we can have that same realization and get that same supreme wisdom and then live in the world as a free soul. So really, I've struggled with this all of these things for years and years and years. Yeah,
Probably uses the word jada samadhi, 21 days. But
21 days. That's the Nirvikalpa Samadhi,
Jada
Jada Samadhi. Yes, absolutely. This, but this Savikalpa Samadhi, does this also give liberation? And can one come back from that? We have to assume, of course, nothing is so clear cut. This is the whole problem with everything.
of course,
Even
he says a bhakta doesn't care for mukti.
that's another thing. Yeah, yeah. But for them, this attainment of real bhakti, that's their liberation also. That will confer liberation
Towards
for them.
mukti is a big thing, but bhakta is
Yeah.
a hero.
Yeah, yeah. Anyhow, this is because when we follow the path of devotion, according to Thakur, when Thakur makes that distinction, those who follow the path of devotion, he'll include almost everybody, even the Brahma Samaj. Many times he'll say, "You're all devotees, you're not jnanis." Even though he'll criticize them for having some of these same ideas that the jnanis have, with this no incarnation and everything, and being a little bit too one-sided or a little monotonous, only playing one note instead of all the notes of the scale. Still, he considers them to be bhaktas. So, who he considers to follow the path of knowledge, it'll be restricted to very few people who exclusively do it. We follow the path of devotion, grounded in knowledge. Right? We means this just in general, this ideal of the Jnana Mishra Bhakti. That this is a beautiful blend, or I would say bhakti with the foundation of knowledge, with knowledge tied in the corner of our cloth. But this very strict idea: Brahman alone is real. This world is unreal. Jiva is nothing but Brahman, and nothing else. Not even meditation. See, this is another funny thing that the real jnanis don't do meditation. They'll do this very deep type of reflection and contemplation. This nididhyasana is not or yogic type of meditation where they're trying to make the mind still and empty and merge it. They're trying to get a flash of insight into the nature of reality. Just like that. Thakur says, like lighting a lamp in a dark room that's been dark for 1,000 years. They're trying to get that flash of insight. Traditionally, somehow, the path of knowledge and the path of meditation have been united. But there's a very strict idea that it'll be through this flash of insight that the mind will suddenly go, and what happens? The universe disappears before one's eyes. Where did it go? What a crazy thing. I saw this world for a second, now it disappears. Now, does that mean that the world was unreal, or just the mind is going to a different level? If we come back down again, we see it one way. Which one is the real way? We go up to for Thakur, what was the real way? His mind goes to a certain level, he sees everything is light, goes a little bit higher, everything disappears for him. If once we see this world disappear for us, do we ever come back and think that it's real? Maybe, I don't know. We question which one is real, which one is a hallucination. Depends on the depth of that experience and how real it feels for us at the time. This path of devotion and knowledge, this blending path of devotion and knowledge is much easier and safer. And too much of reasoning just gets us into trouble. If we can bring spiritual life down from the head to the heart and develop that love and feeling, we're better off, I think. Ultimately, this is why Thakur said that he exhorts people to cultivate self-surrender to God. Yeah, but the Sharanagati doesn't come without effort. It's not so easy. We have to fly in every direction first, till we take shelter with the ship, land on the mast.
Swamiji, what does exactly contemplation mean?
Usually, there'll be some idea, some concept. Traditionally in Vedanta, this contemplation will be on this tattvamasi. This is the standard interpretation that we first hear it, then we think about it very deeply, and then we try to experience it. We try to really feel the truth of it. That's our nididhyasana. So we contemplate an idea, and that we're truth. We can say an axiom, some Vedantic truth, which is that oneness of the self.
Deep reflection.
Deep reflection, very deep type of reflection. Yeah. In Christian theology, meditation means reflection. They use it in a slightly different sense. Yeah. So their meditation, and it can be for the bhakta, it can be on the divine play also. A little bit different, but for the jnani, generally, this Mahavakya, specifically they use tattvamasi for some reason. It can be any of the Mahavakyas. That'll be, we have to think very deeply, what does it mean? Who is the tat and who is the tvam? If you tell me that I'm one with God, then I have to think, what is the nature of that I? It can't be this body. This body is not one with God. So we have to reflect and think deeply, what could it mean? And we peel off what is the real nature of the self? What is the real nature of God? I peel away everything. Am I one with that divine power? And no, even that's not true. So then as Brahman, I have to think about also as pure consciousness.
So is it you're in macrocosmic realm at that time? I mean, you can't be thinking anything that is on this earth or around you.
Don't use that microcosmic word.
No,
But yeah, we're
some other realm, because otherwise we are thinking about things around.
No. We're thinking only about what is the nature of the self and what is the nature of Brahman. Eyes can be closed. We're not aware of anything else. We're deeply We're deeply immersed. Everything is imaginary. If I tell you, think of Thakur, is that not using your imagination? Yeah. No, it doesn't. But that consciousness that we're contemplating is real. It's real. It's all, if we didn't have it, we couldn't contemplate. Yeah, that can't be denied. That's real, and we try to experience that. What would it be like for that consciousness? How can we conceive of it existing without any object for it, and without any false identification for it? This will be that type of deep reflection, contemplation, nididhyasana. That is why God incarnates himself as man and teaches people the path of devotion. He exhorts people to cultivate self-surrender to God. Following the path of devotion, one realizes everything through his grace, both knowledge and supreme wisdom. Now, what the distinction is, I don't know. But we can also say both knowledge and devotion, also everything. God sports in this world. He is under the control of his devotee. Now, this is a beautiful idea. We think God, that everything is under the control of God. But if we think that these small children, how they can wrap a parent around their little finger, that love is so strong that the parents will do anything. They'll melt a little bit. So it's a very beautiful idea. God sports in this world. He is under the control of his devotee. Shama, the Divine Mother, is herself tied by the cord of love of her devotee. Sometimes God becomes the magnet and the devotee the needle. And sometimes the devotee becomes the magnet and God the needle. So in the beginning, the God attracts us. Otherwise, we're lost. We have no choice. We're lost in the wilderness. There has to be something to pull us. But we get close enough, and then our devotion is so great that God feels attracted to us. Now, we can say that this is an allegory. There's nothing, it's such a literal thing, but a beautiful idea. It's very nice. Sometimes God becomes the magnet and the devotee the needle. Sometimes the devotee becomes the magnet and God the needle. The devotee attracts God to him. God is the beloved of his devotee and is under his control. Okay, let us stop here. I don't know how much people saw of this. If it was really online or not online, but okay. Any last questions? Yeah, they're all of the questions that were asked and all of the points that Swamiji raised, that there's no clear cut yes or no, right or wrong for all of these things. They leave so much room for interpretation. Even though Ramakrishna is so clear on many things, still, who he's talking to, why he's saying it, what the context is, all of these things have to be taken into consideration. And what his motive is, what he's trying to accomplish. These are not simple things for us to understand. We have to really look very deeply at these things and understand them according to our own light. And not that there'll be an exam afterwards and they'll say, no, you got that question wrong. We understand it as far as we're capable of understanding it. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukam Bhathudavikraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamedhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namah. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who was stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto you.